Hello, good day, everyone. Happy weekend. Welcome to today's edition of my Liberation Gospel. Today, I'm going back to roots or back to basics. Why do I say that? With the title of today's edition of my Liberation Gospel, the Ukwu market crisis and the land grab by criminal functionaries in the Nigerian government. Many of us yesterday night, as we were about to sleep, depending on which part of the world you are in, but particularly if you're in Nigeria, many, even today, many got to hear about developments in central Owere. Why I said back to roots or back to basics, actually I'm from Owere. That is my hometown. I'm a full born Owere man. So if you are from Owere, so the issue at stake, I'm very conversant with the issue at stake, the crisis in the Ukwu market. So it all boiled down to key things. I said, let me use this opportunity to address that issue because it's just I think it's a microcosm of a macrocosm Nigeria when it comes to the issue at stake in the Owere crisis. I mean, the current conflict that is going on, and there's loss of life. It's been going viral online. You see kids that were shot by the Nigerian security agencies. So it's all about this land grabbing. I remember that particular spot is on Douglas Road. If you are, if you know Owere very well, or if you are from Owere, you will follow up with my story or what I want to say now. And if you are a Nigerian, what is happening in Owere? It's happening, in fact, in many parts of Nigeria. It's all about grabbing of land. There's one particular trend. There's a particular trend of things among government functionaries when they get into office. You see, when they get into office, they tend to use their power to grab land, and because of the inherent problem with land use in Nigeria, you know about the Land Use Act in Nigeria. I have said something like that. I've talked about it in one of my broadcasts. That particular law is causing problem in the country because it's very unpopular. I mean, the Land Use Act, which was promulgated into law by the first time of Olusegun Obasanjo when he was a military dictator, but he enshrined it into the into the constitution that ushered in Shagari. But before I get to that, a Ukwu market, or more or less a Konwa, because I am from Owere. I'm very conversant with that area. From Douglas Road, you get into the Konwa and go straight. The first road is Jamanz by the left. Then from there you can bust straight to seeing many adjacent roads until you get to Tetlu down. So this market is an ancestral market. But all the same, let us not talk about it being an ancestral market. I want those of you who are conversant with with that vicinity, that area, that place is very organized. In fact, before the current governor came to power, that area, that's actually before there was a time it used to be shabby, hawkers will put on their wares along the road and things like that. And past administrations will always give one excuse or another. You see tax force people, hoodlums, urchins, extorting people, exploiting people on behalf of the state government or the local government. But in this case, the Owere people are going against the plan to remove that market from its present spot by Rochas Okorocha. Why do they want? Why are they against that? And why do the state government, headed by Governor Rochas Okorocha, why do they want to move that market? Yeah, I'll talk about that. That market, it's in fact until recently, or even recently, it's the mainstay of the economy within that axis, because a lot of people depend on that market for the means of survival. And so when you are moving that market, did you make any alternative arrangement for the people? Because that's one of the problems we have in Nigeria. When they want to move people, they don't really care about people's means of livelihood. Those who have shops there, they won't even be sorted out or given alternative. And taking into cognizance their livelihood, their dependence, and their attendant problems. That's one. On the other side, I talked about land grabbing, because I see it's not only in Imo State, it is replicated in many other states in Nigeria. Any governor who comes in will just look for one land and start erecting stalls. Because especially in this part of Nigeria, southeast, you see most of our people are traders. So market stalls, it's very, very lucrative. It's a very important asset. It's a very important asset. It's a means to wealth. So the government functionaries, especially criminals among them who manage to get into power, will exploit that to enrich themselves and their cronies. And what does Rochas want to do? Yeah, we have time today. It's weekend, so we're going to talk more on this. One, there's particular thing they want to do before. That was let me just go a bit down memory lane. If you are conversant with that area, that's particular in front of that shop. That's a Konwa market, or Owere market, so to say. It's opposite St. Paul's Catholic Church. It used to be a motor park. When we were small, it used to be a motor park. When we were small, when I was in St. Peter Clever Seminary, Opala, we bought our taxi to Opala in that park. But along the time, a military administrator came on and changed the whole set, moved that park from the present spot where they are Rochas Okorocha and his urchins are demolishing the stores. They moved the park from there to the new market. The new market after the Amausa area, yeah, around that. They moved the new park to that place, to undirected stores. But why am I saying this? Because government functionaries, each time they do this, they want to recruit. They want to recruit the stores and own shops, giving out to their cronies. Because all these things are interwoven with a lot of problems. Attendant problems. Looking at the 1978 Land Use Act, it all boils down to that, because the Land Use Act, it's a terrible act in Nigeria, and it gives authority to the government. It gives immense authority to the governor of every state to be in charge of land. Apart from the land that belongs to the federal government and its agencies, every other land in every state is controlled by the governor. That is why you have what in Nigeria they call the CFO, the certificate of occupancy. That certificate of occupancy is signed by the governor or his agents, which could be the commissioner of lands or an urban development, depending on what it's called in that state. So with that, you see the imposition of land grab, especially when the functionary is a criminal-minded person. They will amass a lot of land, take over people's land. They don't even care what comes out of it, and that is what is happening with this particular situation in Owere. But first, let's go to this Land Use Act, because this Land Use Act is causing a lot of problem in Nigeria, and each administration, each constitution, they will just bring it back and put it back into the constitution, because on a bigger scale, it favors the federal government. This is what we have been talking about. I mean, about Nigeria, and the kind of thing that happened in the country, the naked disenfranchisement of people, how the country disenfranchises its people, they pauperize their people, they want their people to remain in abject poverty so that they can control that, because land is very, very important. In any society, land is very important. It's a means to wealth, it's a means of production. So if you take people's land, you are taking their source of wealth. There are cases of that you go to, for instance, in South Africa, they are still having this issue now. The apartheid government there took over the land of the people. You see South Africans, they are just poor. 20 or 30% of the population is controlling 80% of the land mass, arable land and everything, because land is a means of production. It is a pathway to creation of wealth, because if your land, you can just sell your land and get money and do whatever you want to do. If you come to the Western world, then you know what I'm talking about. Land is very, very important, is a source of wealth. And in Nigeria, the Land Use Act rubbishes everything. Though it looks as if you still have land, communal land, but it depends on if not being remembered by the state governor, because the state governor, out of his discretion, can decide to annex any land on behalf of the states, and that is what they keep doing. Sorry. So I'm going to read a bit of a salient part of the 1978 Land Use Act, so that you know how you begin to understand how it affects you, because this is very, very important. He says acquiring land in Nigeria is tough, and one of the biggest challenges stems from the activities of land grabbers, scam agents, and sheer number of professionals needed to legitimately and successfully acquire one. This brings to the question of what we are talking about on what is this Land Use Act. According to Chapter 202 of the Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 1990, the Land Use Act is an act to vest all land comprised in the territory of every state, except, like I said before, except land vested in the federal government or its agencies, which means unless federal government owns that land or its agency, every other land in the state is in the discretion of the governor of the state, who would hold such land in trust for the people and would henceforth be responsible for allocation of land in all urban areas to individuals resident in the state and to organizations for residential, agriculture, commercial, and other purposes, while similar powers will, with respect to non-urban areas, are conferred on local government. So this is just a summary of the powers of the governor on land in his state.